Okay, so in this tutorial we're going to be unwrapping the body. So we finished up our belt here, the head's done. So we're going to move on to the awfulness that is unwrapping the rest of this character. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to hide the head. I don't really care about that right now. I'm just going to apply a UVW, unwrap UVW modifier. If you don't have it in your stack, you can get it from the pull down menu here. Unwrap UVW. So same as the head, you'll kind of get to see that. My neck looks really funny there, that's really funny. With that open, just click Open UV Editor, and you'll see a mess that is probably your body here. It's just all top down, looks awful. If you put on your checker pattern, it's just going to be nonsense. So the very first thing we're going to do is just kind of separate out all these elements, much like we did for the head. So with my element selected here, this little select by element UV toggle, make sure that's on. I can just click on these guys, and then I can move the body aside here, big armor piece, and then just move them all off into different areas. And then this will be my belt. I believe that's the back half of my belt. I can put that here, front half, and then these are the kind of weird ones with the buckles and stuff. I'm just going to select this whole thing and move it out of the way. So the first thing, you just want to organize yourself a little bit, just so things aren't overlapping on the square. And so let's start with the easier ones. We'll just do the armor. These guys should be really easy. They're one-sided for mine. If they're two-sided for yours, you're going to want to break up the bottom and the top just so pelt will actually work. With that selected, I'm going to go over here, select the pelt mapper, and just hit relax, or do start and then hit relax, and then just commit those changes. For some reason it did the body, which is not at all what I wanted. Thank you, Max. So let's just try that again. With this guy selected, I'm going to hit pelt. There we go. I'm going to go start pelt, start relax, give that a little bit of time to work do its thing. And you'll see it did a pretty good job. It did some stretching over here, which is not very nice. And a little bit of stretching over there too, so I might try fixing that up a little better. So I'm going to start the pelt again. I'm going to hit relax. Basically what happens is it runs into the edges of this pelt mapper and it won't be able to relax anymore. So what you can do if you run into situations like that is open up your pelt options, select, hit this button called Select Stretcher, and just scale this guy up. If you hold Control and Alt at the same time, you can uniformly scale outwards. Just make it a little bigger, and just hit Start Relax again. Oh, sorry, and then go to select Pelt UVs, and then just hit Start Relax again, and it'll have a little bit more space to start doing that. So hit that a couple times until you get a bit of a better result. There you go, that looks a lot nicer. Got rid of the stretching. So that's that, so that'll be good for that one. I'm going to hit commit. I'm just going to do the same thing for my other armor pieces. I could shrink this, just leave it up top there. And I'll do that for these two as well. I'm just going to shrink them down so they're not so far away. So just do the same thing. Pelt mapping is great for objects like this. Just start pelt, start relax. Take a look at what that looks like. That one did a pretty good job. So again, just move it out of the way, and then do that for the rest of your stuff. Sometimes it'll actually come out of the pelt stretcher and actually do a pretty decent job, which is awesome. Alright, so those are the easy pieces. I just wanted to get those out of the way. Just kind of remind you about the pelt mapper. I could do the same thing for my belts. Here, just do one at a time. Alright, start pelt, start relax. Sometimes it's going to get a little out of hand. Let's see where that got out of hand here. So that's not at all what we wanted, so let's just do that again. Start pelt, start relax. You might want to catch it before it gets all crazy. Select your stretcher again, scale that out, and then let's just try that again. So start pelt, start relax. Oops. Select your UV seams or pelt UVs, and there you go. Just relax that a couple times, and that should look much better. There we go. So do that. I'm going to do that for the rest of my belt, and then we'll move on to the hard part, which is the body. So, and then this is the buckle. We'll deal with the buckle in a little bit too. There's a couple things you're going to want to do with simple shapes like cylinders and stuff like that. That stuff you might want to do manually just by stitching things together. Sometimes you get carried away relying on felt too much, and it can actually cause more damage than good. So this guy, I'm just going. He's a mess. So I'm just going to go mapping, flatten mapping, and just let the auto mapper kind of do its thing. It did a whole bunch of crazy stuff, which is fine. The nice thing about this guy, he's all quads and he's all straight lines, but it did kind of curve them based on all their curves there. You don't necessarily want that. You want these guys to be straight. They'll capture better. They'll be easier to stitch. Luckily, 3D Max has a really nice tool for us. So if you select all the things that should be straight, so like all these lines here, all these shapes that you want to be just straight lines, you can select all those. Not these guys here because they're kind of funky. But all these other guys that are just straight. You can select all these and then hit straighten selection, and it'll just straighten them all out, which is awesome. There you go. Let's see how it does with this one. It did a pretty nice job. So you can give it a try on these. Sometimes it might do a bad job. Sometimes it might do a good job. This one, he's on the inside of this buckle. I'm just going to leave him as he is, just because that's kind of his natural shape. And then what I'm going to do is just stitch some of these guys together, just get rid of some of these seams. So let's find the top face here. So these top faces are going to be my center. I'm going to select these bottom edges. You can select more than one at a time. I'm just going to go to Tool, Stitch Selected, and have this set on to 0. And unfortunately those weren't all one piece, so I'm just going to have to do them one at a time. And then do the opposite side as well. And just do that. There you go. And so the stitch selected did kind of mess up. See how these polygons are different, there's angles on there. You just select this guy again. Oh, I forgot to merge this one here. You could just select this object here again and just hit that straighten UVs. Or straighten selection again, and it'll straighten it back out for you. So that's kind of nice. Some of these things have been automated to make it a little easier on our lives. And then I could just do the same thing for this one here. Just do all three, hit OK, and then just do the straighten again. All right, there we go. And so do the same thing for any boxy kind of shapes like that. I'm going to do the same for that in a little bit. But we'll move on to the body, which is the hard part. This is really where you're really gonna have to spend some time and kind of understand what you're gonna be baking out. Now the hard part of this is you're gonna have to figure out where your seams go. Now some seams are gonna be easy. Obviously we can just rip this belt off and have it as a separate piece because they're different materials, different elements. Same with the pants here. You know, no problem having some seams along the legs. But definitely, you know, around the arms and skin and stuff like that, you're going to have to be really picky where to put those seams. So, you know, you got to make sure they're kind of hidden away on the side, under the arms, and all that kind of stuff. So, let's just rip this belt off first and foremost, just get it out of the way. So, I'm going to take this ignore back facing button off. In my front viewport, I'm just going to select this whole belt area. And I'm going to hit F2 to turn this to red. I'm just going to deselect all the things that are not my belt. Sometimes takes a little bit of extra care like this. You just got to go through, select things or deselect things one at a time. Some things you can marquee. So be careful what you include in these selections, right? Make sure it's accurate because you don't want to have to redo this after you do a bake and start texturing because it'll mess up everything for you. So be very careful about what you're doing. All right. So that's pretty good. That'll be my belt there. Let's take a look under here. Make sure that's also selected. And so that's pretty good. So we can take that. I'm just going to do mapping, flat mapping on that selection. And that's just going to crappily unwrap my belt here, but split it off and I can just put it off to the side. I'm going to do the same thing for the feet and the legs here. I'm just going to select basically all of that. Right, that'll be one of my legs. Do the same thing for the other one. So again, just to make it easier on yourself, your first step should always be just to rip your stuff apart. Just you know, pick and choose the elements that are going to make up different unwrap sections, and just split them off. You don't want to work on anything too big at a time. So next thing we're going to do, we're going to just try and select these pants here. So with my select by element UV toggle set on, I can just click this because we've added seams above and below, so they'll be separated out. So we do the same thing, just flat map them, put them off to the side. And so the hard part comes with my body here. Obviously I'm going to need some seams around the arms, so let's just separate those out as well. Alright, so somewhere around there. Go right under the armpit there. Alright, so we'll separate those out. So we have some decisions to make here. We can, you know, for me, I'm pretty lucky. I have this big armor piece on the one side, so I can put a seam right under there and you'll never notice it. Having a seam where this arm is selected may not be the best. You know, you may be able to see where that seam is, but it might not be too bad. So let's give that a try. I'm going to just select that arm, and then let's see what we got. We got this body left, so I can just select that in my UVs here, and then go to my front viewport and just start deselecting the body. Sometimes you might have to go into wireframe mode to see what you're doing. Alright, and then do... Alright, you can even do plus and minus here to shrink and grow your selections once you kind of have something that you like. So let's take a look at that. If your armor pieces or anything else is getting in the way, you can detach them, unwrap them separately, put them back on, and then you'll have to pack them all together. But you know, feel free to just break up your model how you see fit, just to help you do your work. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, whatever helps, right? You're going to run into a lot of different issues and things like that. So make your life easier and do that. So I'm actually going to select this arm here and just hit the grow button and just select one more edge there, just so it's the same on both sides. There we go. And then the rest, we have the torso here, so we'll do that. Alright, so let's just start the torso. Actually, I'm going to save my max file here. Remember to save quite a bit. Again, 3D Max crashes a lot, so you know, do your best to protect yourself from that. So I'm just going to select one of these big pieces here. Let's just do the front first. And I'm basically going to just select half this character. So I'm going to just go through. I'm actually going to hide a lot of this armor for now, just because it's really in my way. So I'm going to select my main body here, just go to hide unselected, and then throw an unwrap on that again. If you don't like all these things that are happening, you can just actually detach all your stuff. So let's take a look at that. You can select this guy, hit detach, call him body main, and then we'll just work on him for now. That way we won't have anything else in the way. It'll be nice and clean, and we can reattach him later on. So alright, there we go. So let's do that again. So we have our body here, select the front piece, and let's just go through and selectively pick all the pieces that we want. So with my ignore back facing on, I can just kind of go to the front here and just marquee select some of these guys here, and it'll do a decent job. I'll probably still have some cleanup to do, but it's better than having to select one at a time right off the bat. You know, do your big selections first and then move on from that. So I'm gonna pick right along the side here. You know, a seam right under the armpits is totally fine. You know, less chance of anybody ever seeing a seam under there, so you got to pick and choose, you know, where those go. And then we'll try and do one, you know, right across the shoulders here. There we go. That's not too bad. We'll see. Maybe that's too much in the center. I might actually pick a little bit more. Might hide the seam along the back a little bit more. Yeah, something like that. There we go. You want it even on both sides. You know, make sure you kind of select those guys evenly. I'm just going to flat map them just to have them in the center here. Select them all. I'm going to hit my pelt mapper and just rinse and repeat from all the other steps. So start pelt, start relax. If you're getting too much kind of tension, you know, take a look at it, put the checkers on. You know, always reassess what you're doing. Don't just assume it's going well for you and then realize it's gone terribly. So that went pretty well. Move that guy off to the side and just do the same thing for the back. So pelt, start, relax. And we're getting some craziness over here. So sometimes you might get an instance where you're getting some really weird selections. So let's take a look at this again. I actually wanted this strip here to be part of this should be part of my chest as well, or I don't know why it's selecting it so far out. I must have missed that on the other unwrap, or perhaps that's supposed to be part of the arm actually. So I might have screwed up the arm selections. That should be part of that. So just make sure you select the appropriate guys there. So I'm just going to flat map this, just make sure it's all detached, and then do my pelt again. And it did not do a very nice job around the neck here. You'll see it's all kind of screwed up. So I'm just going to try that again. And maybe not let it do too much relaxing. There we go. That's a little better. It's still kind of funky here. Lots of weird collapsing. I might just have to go through and clean that up by hand. Sometimes there's not much you could do. I mean, I could detach these guys and pelt them separately and then reattach them later. Sometimes you just have to go through and clean up some of this. So be mindful of that. You know, again, really take a look at what your pelt map is doing and make sure that you're not getting yourself into trouble by not checking your work over. There we go. So it's not perfect. I might go through and just clean that up a little more later on too. And so sometimes you might notice after you do a pelt, you might have a few kind of polygons and things kind of left over. So just, you know, double check to see where those are. Sometimes they're hard to find. Right, like this one here. That's there, so that should actually be part of the front of the body. Right, if you select it and go in your viewport and hit Z, it'll go to where it's supposed to. That is also part of the front, and same as that. So I might just select these guys, select the front of the body again, and just redo my pelt map. So I'm just going to flat map it, pelt map, and just do that again. There we go, that's much better. Oh, I think it still missed that little part. Sometimes it does a crappy job attaching things back together. Sometimes you might have to just go flat map and then just stitch these guys back yourself if it's not doing it for you. So I'm just using stitch selected, right, and just manually attaching this stuff myself. So let's take a look at what else we have here. If you select the ones that are floating, you'll see they'll turn blue on the mesh you want to attach them to. So you can just select those single edges and then just reattach. Just like that. There you go. So that's a lot better. And this guy will belong as, actually, should that be in the front? Sometimes it's hard to tell where these things should belong. I think that guy should be part of the front of the body too. So this guy I'm just going to manually do this. So sometimes you want to manually stitch a thing at a time. Sometimes it's better to stitch a face at a time, like these were all connected. I can select these faces and just hit D to detach them. And I'm going to stitch them on one at a time because I don't want to mess up the pelt on the main torso. So I'm just going to do this, stitch them together, And then I'm going to select these edges here. When I go to stitch, I'm going to set this to 0.5 to let them move halfway between each other. And that'll kind of average them out and keep my UVs a lot cleaner than they would have been otherwise. So there you go. Sometimes a little bit of cleanup is necessary. Sometimes pelt messes up and doesn't quite give you what you wanted. So you're going to have to go through and do the exact same thing for the rest of the body. Your hands are definitely, and your arms are going to be tough where you're going to do your seams. You know, how you're going to stitch these guys together and where. The nice thing about your arms, you could probably just get away with having one seam down the middle, and then you're going to have to separate your hands out entirely because they're just too complex to have them part of the arm. So I usually like to select them just around the wrist or something like that, just around there. There we go. So same thing. If I try and move them, they're still attached, so you can either go mapping, flat map, or just hit D, and that'll deselect the hands. And I'll do that for the opposite side as well. There we go. So I won't bother showing you guys how to unwrap your legs and stuff like that. It'll be basically like the hands and the arms. And same with the belt. Just do that as separate chunks, and you know, find them where they're supposed to go. So let's do the arms here. So we got our arms like that. There we go. So what we can do is we can try and just pelt this guy together, and you'll see what happens. Start a pelt. You know, it did this tornado looking thing and a mess of my UVs. The reason for that is I've selected an entire, you know, tube of a mesh, right? This is like trying to flatten out a sleeve without having any cuts. So I need to tell it where that cut's going to go. So I can break apart my geo and do all that kind of stuff, or I can go through into this the peel menu here and select edit seams, and I could just select where my seams go. Just like that. Actually, I might actually do the one right beside it. You know, so your seams are going to turn out in blue, so make sure you're selecting, you know, the right ones here. Oops. Alright, so let's do that. So we have our seams here. That still didn't want to do what it was supposed to. Not quite sure why that's freaking out. Let's take a look here. Oh, I think I missed a seam. Let's just add one there. There we go, much better. So now that we've told it where to separate, now it'll know when it does its pelt where to actually add that cut and split things apart. So let's just do that again. We'll do start pelt. It'll clean it up, do a little bit of a relax on it. Right, you'll see it's freaking out there. And there we go. There's a nice sleeve for that. So we got that. Just move it to the side here. And let's do that for the other arm here. Oh, what is this? Put on my finger that I missed, so just move that down there. So we'll do that again for this guy. So we'll just do a pelt, just a quick one, just that and commit. It's ugly, it's fine. The reason I do that is you see all those green lines are gone. That just helps to get rid of all the seams, and I can do that for my hands as well. Just hit pelt, commit, just move it back out of the way, and it'll do a really obviously awful job, but it'll just get rid of all your seams, just nice and quick. So with this guy selected, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go to my seams section here, go to edit seams, and just click these guys just one at a time. There we go, and let's do a pelt. Oops. I'm just going to undo that. I didn't have, that doesn't auto select your mesh for some reason. Just going to do pelt, start relax. and commit. And there we go. So we got sleeve number 2 done. Now the hands are obviously going to be a lot different because the way you should imagine them is basically each of these fingers is almost like a sleeve on its own, but you don't want like a ton of seams going across every finger. You basically want to split this hand up into in a top and a bottom kind of look here. So what we can do is just either deselect some of these meshes here or use the seam editor to do that. Now the hands we did, or the arms we did point by point, or just edge by edge, which is fine, but it can be a little slow. You can use this one here, which is point to point seams, the second option. And what that allows you to do is allows you to pick a point, and the next point you pick, you'll see here, it'll follow along this contour, and it'll just follow that edge flow around, and it won't require you to necessarily select every single little thing, because if you imagine trying to do this to the hands, that'd be a pain in the ass. Trying to actually select all these select all these guys. So sometimes you gotta take it slow and do only a few at a time because it sometimes gets confused. You can even put your seam closer to your fingernail, so it'll be a good place to hide any seams like that. Okay, there we go. You can right click to stop that operation, just detach that, and when we go, or deselect that, and when we go back here, you can go pelt, start pelt, and it'll just do one of the sides here. Right? It did not a very good job, so I forgot to do a relax, so you do commit, and then relax. And it does a bit of a weird shape there from my hand. Not really that great. I mean, the thing that really sucks about this is it doesn't look like a hand. If I had to paint this in Photoshop, it would be a nightmare to try and understand, you know, where all these fingers are going and all that. So sometimes you might want to do some of these pelts separately and then attach them together. So if we did, you know, if we did this one finger here, let's just go to that selection mode. All right, let's just deselect a couple of these guys here. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Just gonna hit D to deselect that finger, or detach that finger, sorry. There you go. So I'm just gonna pelt this this center piece here on its own. And I'm going to just pelt this finger here. I'm just going to do that to all these fingers. I don't want them to be too curved, so I'm stopping the relax pretty early. There we go. And I'm just going to use the stitch selected tool here. I'm going to select one of these guys, do that. Make sure it's on 0 to match that scale, and try and stitch this back in there. So some of the problems you'll run into is stuff like this. These little center bits are going to cause some havoc in here. So let's take a look at what that'll do. So that's kind of the negative side of stitching these things manually, is you won't get, you'll have to do a little bit of extra work to get all this working, but it'll look more like a hand as opposed to like a really weird curvy kind of looking thing. So it kind of depends what you want. You know, you can always kind of change up your seams a little bit, where they're going to go and how they're going to flow along your body. So it's kind of up to you how you want to do that. You know, nothing wrong either way. I think I'm just probably going to do a pelt on that. Just I want my seams to be nice and clean. Oh, I need to select all these guys together. Flat map them, pelt them. Oh, it already has my seams in there. So see, we've got rid of our nice predefined seams that we added. So it's going to cause a little bit of trouble with that, but I can just crappily restitch this guy. So pick and choose how you want to work on these things. You know, it all depends on the model, how big your hands are, how meaty they are, and all that kind of stuff. So, oops, let me just, sometimes your seams just kind of stick there. You might have to just collapse your guy. Add another unwrap. And undo some of the forced seams that it has there. Let's try some pelt options here. Let's see if we can get this looking a little better without having to manually do all that. Oh, select there. Let's put that checker on there. So again, there you go. These are all nicely stitched with very little stretching and stuff, but our shape is really silly. So you kind of have to find a balance between what you like and what you think will work best for you. I think for me, doing this is more than fine for my character here. So I'm going to do that for my other hand as well. Same kind of deal. Add my stitches or add my seams and go through that. Then we'll go through the legs, or you should go through the legs and then do, you know, put your seams on the inside of your legs, right, where you'll see them less. And then do the same thing as you did to the arms, and then for your feet and your toes and all that as well. So pick and choose where your seams are, finish unwrapping your character, and then when that's done, I'll show you how to stitch them back together. So I'm going to work on my character a bit, and we'll come back to that.